What's up? Hello, everybody. Happy Iron Bowl week. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. We are back for another episode of Roll Pod. Obviously, Alabama and Auburn set to take center stage, I guess, and then some with all the implications on Saturday night in Jordan-Hare, a 6:30 kickoff. Before we get started, real quick, seems like probably
nice long night. 6:45 kickoff. It'll probably be a 3.5-hour game. Can't wait.
A little bit of cold. Before we get into that, again, just real quick, we're running our Black Friday, Cyber Monday special. It's our biggest special of the year, 75% off annual subscription. So go sign up if you haven't already to read all recruiting coverage and everything Mike and Alex continue to bring day in and day out. But again, it's Iron Bowl week, so all the focus is on that. Real quick, we'll talk, I guess, college football scenarios. It's pretty simple for Alabama at this point. Mike or Alex, you want to take it away?
Mike is the maestro of this.
Well, simple as far as the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
If they win this game, the Auburn game, they're in the SEC championship game. The scenarios that were still lingering last week to be able to win the Iron Bowl and remain out of the SEC championship game, those were eliminated by Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt by beating Kentucky. Therefore, the opponent's record tiebreaker will fall in favor of Alabama. So you can't avoid the SEC championship game unless you lose the Iron Bowl, in which case you avoid a lot of things. Go to the playoffs. So there's no way around it. You win this game, you're going to Atlanta. If A&M beats Texas, then you're playing A&M. If A&M loses to Texas, then you're playing Georgia in Atlanta, which has worked out pretty well over the years for Alabama. But I don't know which one of those teams I'd rather face. But obviously right now the focus is still on winning the Iron Bowl because that's tough enough. But as far as the playoff goes, if you lose this game, you're out. I think there's no realistic shot right now of being a 3-loss team that gets in. And then if you win the Iron Bowl and you win the SEC championship game, then I think you're pretty much guaranteed to have a top 4 seed. I think you would naturally be ranked ahead of A&M. Whether you beat A&M or whether A&M loses to Texas, you'll be ranked ahead of Georgia. If you beat Georgia for the second time, I think you'll be ranked ahead of Ole Miss based on Ole Miss not going to the SEC championship game. So you're pretty what? Or not having
a head coach.
Right. Pete Golding as interim head coach, perhaps.
The Ole Miss, I know they're like kind of a 4th team in it. That's if Alabama loses, correct? That's the only way they get into that SEC.
Correct. Yeah, the only way Ole Miss is playing is if Alabama loses. So there's no scenario that results in Alabama playing Ole Miss in Atlanta. Okay. But so yeah, that's a top 4 seed scenario. If you win the Iron Bowl, you win the SEC championship. I think it's not guaranteed, but you're pretty much guaranteed to have a top 4 seed as the SEC champion and therefore a first-round bye. If you win the Iron Bowl and you lose the SEC championship, then we're kind of right back to where we were last year at this point. You're a 3-loss team. The committee has said that they're not necessarily not going to punish teams that lose an extra game, a 13th game. That was something that was asked directly of Hunter Yurachek on the playoff show last week. He basically just said a conference championship game is a 13th game. It's another data point, which makes it equivalent to just a regular season game in their mind. So they weren't sitting there and saying, just because you play in a conference championship game, we're not going to drop you. So if Alabama enters at 10th, you really have to be hoping that A, something happens above you, or B, the committee decides not to drop you from 10th. Because if you drop from 10th, you're pretty much out of the playoff, given the elevation that will happen for the ACC champion, and given the elevation that will happen for the group of 5 best teams. So I don't know. That's an interesting scenario. I think it's probably a topic we can get into some more next week. But best case scenario, if you do lose the SEC championship game, I think is that you're going on the road in the playoffs, in which case you could be playing at Ole Miss and interim coach Pete Golding. I'm just throwing it out there.
Lane Kiffin hasn't addressed it. How do you know he's? I'm just kidding.
I don't know. It hasn't been talked about at all, right?
Yeah.
You could go to Oregon. You could go to Texas Tech, I think, is less likely. You could go to Athens. That's probably less likely as well. But Oxford, Norman, and Eugene are probably your three most likely scenarios if you make the playoffs by losing the SEC championship.
BYU in that or no?
No, because well, yeah, if BYU beats Texas Tech,
Right.
and then you might actually go to Lubbock instead. So if BYU beats Texas Tech, that's probably a bad scenario for Alabama. That's not what you want. That's similar to last year with Clemson beating SMU, because otherwise I don't think BYU is in. So if they win that, then they get the automatic bid from the Big 12. I think Texas Tech probably stays in the field, and therefore you're bumping a team out.
Right.
Well, Alabama and you're number 10, and you're kind of the last team in, you'd get bumped out. So that's not a scenario that I think you want as Alabama. You're rooting hard for Texas Tech to win the Big 12 championship game. The ACC championship game doesn't really matter to you. I think what matters is Miami. Miami is not going to play in the ACC championship game. If they finish 10-2 by beating Pittsburgh, how does the committee handle that, given that Miami has a head to over Notre Dame that's ahead of you, given that Miami went to Florida State and beat them and you went to Florida State and lost? How does the committee handle Michigan if they happen to beat Ohio State in Ann Arbor, a 10-2 Michigan team? Those are questions that are kind of floating out there. And like I said, we'll get into that more next week. But as far as the playoff goes, you definitely need to win this Iron Bowl. And if you do win the Iron Bowl, then you are guaranteed, you are clinched, locked in to go to the SEC championship game.
Yeah. But going to the SEC championship game, I don't think clinches anything for you, though.
No.
I've been surprised, frankly, by the number of people who have insisted that just beating Auburn, you're in because you're in the SEC game, and they will not penalize you for it. I don't agree that it's the 13th data point, and therefore it's like any regular season game. I think they're going to try not to use it, but we're all going to watch the game. Mm-hmm. Everyone in that room is going to watch the game. It's not like they're just going to say, oh, well, Alabama's in. We don't want to penalize anybody. Shut it off. That's not going to happen. So if it's a lopsided loss, I just don't – and lopsided is anything more than a touchdown in my mind, because there's all those potential spoilers in the field, and maybe some of that clears itself up this weekend. I doubt it. I just think that the margin for error is very thin, and unless Alabama just looks really competitive and loses, I'd be very concerned about their chances of getting in. That's assuming, of course, that they win the Iron Bowl, and we don't want to put the basket before the horse, or whatever the hell this phrase is.
Yeah, you sound like me mixing your metaphors.
Yeah.
But yes, there's going to be a degree of recency bias, and so if you lose that SEC championship game, assuming you make it, that's kind of the last thing the committee sees. And that's also a late afternoon game. A couple hours later, they're walking into their meeting room. Like, that is fresh in their minds, what they just saw in the field in Atlanta. So you have to take that into account. But what was I going to say? The thing about the SEC championship game, it's like you can't automatically say it doesn't matter for Alabama in the playoffs because they made the game. Mm-hmm. They made the game because of their conference record. And that's not taking into account the full picture. Like, Ole Miss does not have a non-conference loss. Georgia does not have a non-conference loss. A&M does not have a non-conference loss. Alabama has a bad non-conference loss. That is the difference. That doesn't reflect itself in you playing the SEC championship game, because that's only reflecting your SEC record, but the committee is looking at the whole picture. And therefore there's more going on than just being the two best teams in the SEC. Again, it all speaks to the fact that the SEC championship game is probably not worth the trouble right now. And there needs to be a better solution, regardless of what happens with Alabama. I think in the future, to have that game actually make more sense.
Instead of being a game that we say shouldn't have an impact, it should be a game that does have an impact.
Right.
So you're talking about like a
playing game.
Like a play. So what? Yeah. So who are those teams right now?
Would it be Vanderbilt and?
Well,
it'll be Vanderbilt and Alabama right now.
Okay.
I mean, depends on how you design it, because it all would have to be based on a playoff format that has a set number of teams from the SEC at minimum. So that is part of the Big Ten's proposal that, again, people kind of laughed at. They're like, oh, 24, 32 teams. Like, that's stupid. But baked within that would be 4 automatic bids from the SEC, 4 automatic bids from the Big Ten, and really you make the conference championship games part of that as play-in games. And so again, depends on how you design it.
Does it need to be a play-in game?
What?
Does it need to necessarily be a game that guarantees you get in? Or could it just be a game for a marginal team that gets an extra data point and therefore boosts their at-large resume?
I think you're back to the same spot then. If it's a marginal team, why play that extra game?
Because you're basically putting your 2 least qualified teams for the playoff.
Right. So if that was
it gets really subjective, and it's probably more problematic than anything. I just hate the idea of anything that involves automatic qualifiers.
Right.
I think we should get rid of the game, period. I'm just trying to come up with a solution that keeps those fine folks in Birmingham in terry cloth or whatever.
I think if it's going to be a play-in game like that, then there needs to be an automatic qualifier that you're playing into. In which case, I think in this particular scenario, it would be some sort of Vandy, Oklahoma, or Alabama, Oklahoma, Alabama, Vandy. I think if you're talking about designing it, as you just said, if you're taking 2 marginal teams that might be out of the field, then it'll be Vandy, Texas. And we've seen all those games so far this year, pretty much all of them. So it's just, that's just the way this year fell. I mean, another year it could be Alabama, LSU, Alabama. Well, I guess they played LSU, Alabama, Florida, Alabama, whatever. Like, it's not guaranteed that it would be a repeat game, but it should be a game on the margin somewhere instead of just whatever it is now.
Yeah. We'll get into Iron Bowl real quick. Just some cleanup coming out of last weekend. Obviously, Alabama taking down Eastern Illinois. If you listen to this podcast, we told you Eastern Illinois is a bad team, and they are bad. I'm like laughing. It's like, oh, Alabama scores 8 rushing touchdowns. Take that, committee, and all these fans. It's like we talked about it before. It doesn't matter. Like, they could have ran for 17 rushing touchdowns on that game. I don't know if they thought they were doing something or anything. Biggest kind of real quick, just takeaway from that game. Mine was kind of off the field, just with the Washington Big Three, I guess, if you will, the Parker Bradford, Jerry Bernard, Josh Cuevas. I'll let you guys kind of, I feel like that's kind of the biggest storyline coming out of last weekend. Obviously, the playing and the snaps and all that we could dive into forever, but we're not going to. Alex, we'll start with you, kind of just those 3, and Mike as well.
Yeah, I do think the Cuevas injury in particular is the one that you kind of worry about and circle and say, is he going to be available? It's dicey, I think, is probably the best way to put it. And he's a key part of this offense. He's probably the most consistent pass catcher they've had outside of Jeremy. And there have been some games where, the last few weeks where Jeremy's not been maybe quite right. But you don't worry about the long-term impact of that game. We could get in, the Connor Talty conversation, but he is what he is. Like, we've been saying this for 3 months that this guy might be a problem. I wanted to see Ty Simpson get in a rhythm. Didn't happen. One of those interceptions I don't care about, the one at the end of the half, but it's still you would have liked to have seen it. But no, I think you're right. Is Cuevas available for this game? And if he's not, do you trust Marshall Pritchett, Caleb Edwards, on and on down the line? Those first 2 guys I named haven't played a lot of football. Jay Lindsey has not played a lot of football. And you're going into Jordan-Hare Stadium against a really good defense. That could be problematic.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's obviously the thing to watch. I think Kalen DeBoer's kind of dodged those questions a little bit on Cuevas so far. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the injury report will come out Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, and we'll know his status from there. But just based on the tone that has kind of been used with him since Saturday, it just doesn't seem as likely that he'll play, as opposed to the alternative. So, and Danny Lewis, I don't think is really, I don't know what's going on there. I mean, his foot, he was still in a walking boot in that Eastern Illinois game. So it doesn't seem like you're going to have him either based on that direction. So that's really your 2 top tight ends in theory. I mean, Danny Lewis has barely played this year. Missouri game was probably his healthiest game, and that was a while ago. So if you don't have those 2, then it's probably Edwards. And I even hesitate to say Pritchett. I think he did some good things in this game, but he hasn't really played on offense. I think it would really be like Edwards and Jay Lindsey as your top 2, especially if you're trying to run the ball. Yeah, I don't know. Look, Auburn has a good defense. Like that's the thing that would is obviously going to keep them in this game. That's the thing that's keeping the line where it is, which is like 5.5 points. Like Auburn's defense right now is 11th in adjusted efficiency. Alabama's is 10th. And they're right up there with some of the other good defenses that Alabama's played. I mean, South Carolina is 12th right now. LSU is 8th. Oklahoma is 4th. And you've struggled offensively against all those defenses. So Missouri even at 18th, and Alabama's offense didn't have a great day that day. So if that trend continues, then, your Keldrick Fox, a really good player in the front seven, and you're going to have to account for him. So, and then, how's Brailsford too? I mean, by all indications that Brailsford's going to play, but like, is he going to be 100%? Is Jeremy Bernard going to be 100%? Like, where's Ty at with his headspace? Where's Ty at with his mechanics? Playing on the road, the pressure of this game. There's a lot to be concerned about offensively. You maybe are a little bit encouraged with the running game based on what you've seen the last 2 weeks, but just you never know. Like, I don't know if there's a ton of confidence with the running game.
There shouldn't be.
Right.
I will say, not because we don't want to get into the weeds, and because the way the game went with the distribution of carries, the distribution of who made plays, it's really hard to read into. I will just say this, and I know Brett's going to agree with what I'm about to say. Keelan just looks different, man. The ball comes out of his hand, and it's just like, oh, yeah, that's a 5-star kid. There'll be many podcasts to get into the Austin Mack, Keelan Russell debate for next season. We're assuming Ty's gone.
Yep.
I think even if he has a bad game at Auburn, I still think with the glut of good quarterbacks, he's probably still a first-round pick. That little snap that he's got, man, I just roll with that, man. And you gave him a whole year to learn the system, and the way Kalen talked about the way he managed the offense more than anything else. He didn't talk about his arm talent, didn't talk about a single throw he made. It was the way he managed the offense, and I think that was the biggest thing they wanted to get accomplished this year, and that's one of the biggest things you can show against an inferior opponent is just how you manage the system, and he did a good job at that. You combine that with the talent that you can just see with your own eyes. Sorry, Austin, you look like a really good player too, because you look like freaking John Elway out there. You're huge.
Massive.
It's just different. It's just different the way the ball comes out of his hands.
I think he also, and he didn't run a whole lot, but we've talked about it on this podcast too. I think that's an element of his game that's not talked about a whole lot as well. Real quick.
He's a better runner than Ty is.
Yeah. The Austin Keelan kind of, it felt like they were kind of exchanging series. That didn't seem like it was seemed like it was the plan. I'm not going to speak to the coaching.
Sure,
it wasn't like, Austin did this, so Keelan get it. Oh, Keelan didn't do this. So it's like that's all kind of methodically planned, I think. Right. Anything else kind of coming out of that game? Again, there's not much you can really.
Do we care that Ryan Grubb is going to probably coach this game from the sideline? I made this point on a radio show the other day. I don't think it matters anymore with iPads on the sidelines. I think you can see what you need to see if you've got people up there who can tell you more in real time what they're looking at. I think it's probably only a positive that he can be down there and look Ty in the eyes and kind of feel how he's feeling within the game. So I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world. It's interesting it's happening this late in the season. But I think the change in technology these last few years has really sort of paved the way for that to be an option for some of these guys.
And it's just one of those things where no matter what it is, they're always going to give the explanation of like, here's why it works. Like Keelan, when he was asked about being in the booth or Grubb being in the booth, was like, I always loved doing that myself. He said I could spread my things out. It was quiet. Like there's going to be reasoning given either direction.
Right.
Like Bill O'Brien talking about being on the sidelines. I can look my quarterback in the eye. And whatever the case is, they're going to kind of build the reasoning up for why it's happening. So I don't know if there's a perfect way of doing it. I think there's pros and cons to each shot.
The perfect way is that TV boom that can go back and forth. You remember how they have Booger McFarland in that?
Oh yeah, they should have Ryan Grubb there.
I think Ryan Grubb should do that so he can get down really quickly, talk between series.
The Booger mobile. The best part of that Booger McFarland mobile, whatever, was the ulterior angles of like the fans getting blocked by his giant thing. It's like Booger move, like screaming at him from the stand. Just I don't know that was like,
one of these days a coach is going to try that. They're going to say, I'll never forget Derek Dooley bringing a stool out to the sideline at Tennessee. And I was like, that's when I knew this dude was cooked. And then Alabama won like 55-0, whatever the hell it was.
Remember when Hugh Freeze coached from a hospital bed?
Yep.
Yeah.
I actually just saw his speech pregame from that when he was already in the hospital bed and his team was still in the locker room. It looked like AI, but maybe it was. I don't know. But that was just, it was so uncomfortable. I was like, oh, this is just
like, are they all gathered around him to say goodbye? Like,
right. And then it's the throwing that it's at Liberty. That's a whole nother. It's just like whole other thing. All right. Anyway,
5 years ago in the Iron Bowl, Nick Saban coached from his home office.
Mm-hmm.
He gave a speech to the team on a TV like Darth Vader, like speaking from a distant galaxy.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm gonna send more Iron Bowl ass. Probably what you're saying.
More Iron Bowl talk. I should have pinned it, and I'm gonna mess it up. But one of the national guys put out, I think this morning or yesterday, was like, "Are we in a world where the Iron Bowl has more coaching implications than the Egg Bowl? And when is the last time that has happened?"
The Iron Bowl has more. It's hard because the Lane Kiffin of it all overshadows everything.
Right.
But I don't think the Egg Bowl has any implication on whether Lane takes another job. I think
and Levy's safe. It's not like he's kind of and that's why I'm like, and
Levy just like loses the game and walks across the sidelines with I'm the Ole Miss coach now.
Right.
Which I don't think is out of the realm of possibility. It'd be
but
wild,
the expectations are so low for Mississippi State. It's like Levy can lose 8 games a year.
Yeah, their NIL is like not comparable.
Right.
And he was at Ole Miss before. I could see it lines up a little bit. At the end of the day, I don't think Kalen. I think this is the most important game of Kalen's career at Alabama. But I don't think it means that if he loses, he's going to be fired.
Is it if Auburn wins? Did they? Oh, go ahead, Durkin. We're elevated. Like it's just like I don't think they will either. But they also.
What
if you go with DJ Durkin? Why didn't you hire Kevin Steele?
Right.
Like, I just don't see it. I think Durkin has signaled that he's willing to stay on as defensive coordinator. Is there a conflict if Summerall is going to be the guy? Does he run the same system? How does that work? I don't know. Yeah, I guess there are some implications. I don't know. I guess I'm in the world of how it relates to Kalen and would immediately put Kalen on the hottest of hot seats. I don't see a world in which this late in the cycle, which is weird to think about because the regular season has not ended.
November.
It's insane. It's straight up insane.
Great point.
But like you have to think pragmatically. Like if you're Greg Byrne, why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. I agree with that line of thinking. I also have lived in this state long enough to know what this game means.
Yeah.
And I think if there is a potential scenario where Alabama lays an egg in this game, a la Oklahoma last year, and they're just not even competitive, that there's going to be a sour, dire taste in some people's mouths that have money and influence. And regardless of Greg Byrne's intentions or wishes or desires, what do those people think? And would they be willing to pay what it takes to make a change? So I don't think that's even close to being likely.
Yeah.
But I also hesitate to completely dismiss it just because of if you are in, again, I think I agree with your reasoning about he's on a hot seat. If you lose this game, he missed the playoffs for a second year in a row. That would imply that you enter next year in a hot seat, that there's a lot of pressure, that if you lose a game, there's going to be a lot of chatter.
Yep.
And then are you considering a mid-season coaching change next year? And how much sense does that make versus if you are thinking about making a change and down the road, would it make more sense to do it now when you can hire a staff and the portal and all that? So I don't think, again, this is kind of a fringe discussion at this point, but
yeah,
to me, it doesn't make sense to go into next year and be like, all right, you lose a game, we're out. Like we're going to blow it up in September if you lose to whoever. Like,
why not?
It just seems so
financially speaking, because let's also recognize that Alabama does not have more money than the Vatican, as the athletic director likes to say.
That is what he said.
Why would you commit to a massive buyout now when you can kick the can down the road, and say worst case scenario they do lose, and mid-season you do have to make a change. I don't think that's going to happen, but then you're first in line. You're in a much better spot. You've saved yourself some money. You've at least given yourself a look of what Kalen DeBoer and his quarterback look like, assuming that is Keelan Russell and or Austin Mack at quarterback, assuming that Ty Simpson leaves. You get to see what that looks like for a little while. I think it would be worth at least going into it, even with a lopsided defeat. All that said, I think they're going to beat Auburn.
Yeah.
But I do think that if it's ugly, it'll get dicey. But I still don't see them making that move because of where we're at in the coaching cycle, the financial pressures, and there's not really it would be a tough off season. I would limit my speaking engagements if I were wearing a Crimson A on my chest, but I think it would still be worth rolling it back for another year to see what it looks like.
I'm just saying, I think, let's say you have a bad loss to Auburn, you keep Kalen DeBoer, you go into next year. I don't think you're losing to Florida State, East Carolina, or USF at home. Mm-hmm. If you are, then, good luck. But then is the Georgia game at home? Is that next September again?
Yeah.
You break the cycle and lose to Georgia, and let's just say you have a home loss to Georgia next September. You lose that game, everybody's just going to say in that building, everything's still ahead of us. All of our goals are still in front of us. We only have one loss. Don't kill us now. Don't bury us. You're just starting that cycle again of we only have one loss. And then let's say you lose a second game. Oh, we only have two losses. Or all of our goals are still ahead of us. We can still make the playoffs. So to me, I feel like the best time to make a change is at the end of a season.
Just not this season. I just don't
see it right now being at the end of this season. But I think if you're in the same spot next year and you don't make the playoffs, then it's really dying.
Make it something more concrete because we are going far afield here. I think that's why people can legitimately think about, would Kalen consider Penn State if they lose the Iron Bowl? And he thinks, man, I'm on the hot seat. This isn't working here. Could I start over? Again, I don't think that's going to happen. From what I understand, there has not been direct contact made between Kalen and Penn State. I don't think there's a significant amount of interest because I just don't see it, too. You go from one fishbowl in Tuscaloosa to another fishbowl at Penn State. Why? But I think the fact that we can sort of legitimately think through all these scenarios is a reason why, at the very least, Kalen's representatives are going to want to keep that door open. Yeah. Because we cannot discount the fact that almost everybody covering Penn State, it seems like, has been told by multiple people that Kalen DeBoer is at the top of their list. And how much are they willing to pay to get that done? And are they secretly rooting for Alabama to lose this weekend so they have a chance at hiring Kalen DeBoer? It's fascinating. That I don't think is going to happen. It is very fascinating.
I just don't understand it. And Mike, you said it over and over. You're rooting for a guy to lose so you can. I just doesn't.
Right. There's a lot of inconsistencies with people's thinking on this particular subject. Obviously, Penn State rooting for a guy to lose so you can hire him is bizarre. Even for some Alabama fans, kind of, resisting or shutting down, pushing back against any report about this, and then while also saying, we're going to get rid of this guy if he loses the Iron Bowl.
And on top of that, we're going to get Lane.
Right? Do you want him or do you not want him? So there's a lot of inconsistency there. I will say the most interesting part of this, to speak to what Alex was saying about some of the Penn State reporting, is that if it was a hard no chance given from Kalen DeBoer's camp to Penn State, it feels like this wouldn't be a story at this point, that Penn State would have gotten that answer, that there wouldn't be persistent reports on that end. I agree with what Alex is saying, that there's logic to the whole situation in that if you are Kalen DeBoer's representatives and you think there's a chance that people at Alabama are going to push you out the door if you lose the Iron Bowl, why would you say no to Penn State right now? There's logic to just keeping that door open. That doesn't mean that Kalen DeBoer wants to leave, but that's the job of an agent. Like that's
the job of the agent is to say, Kalen, oh, you don't want to go. You just tell them no. Okay, thanks, Kalen, and never pick up the phone and call Penn State and say I'm telling you no, because it's their job to think that, Kalen, I know you're saying this week, but I need to make sure you're believing it next week, because I don't think Kalen's mind will change. I don't think that. I think this guy is super competitive, and he came to Alabama for a reason, and I don't think he's going to run from it. But I think it's your job as an agent to make sure that he says no like 3 or 4 different times before you successfully shut that door. The job of agents is to find options.
Is Jimmy Sexton not fired?
Leverage. That's it. Simple.
Sexton not fired. I mean, he's with Jimmy and Lane. He's given a rest. But
Jimmy's not. I mean,
Jimmy's not the primary agent for Kalen.
Right.
But it's CAA in general.
Yeah. Right.
Look, if any of us was skilled enough to do Jimmy Sexton's job, like we would be in a different business. Like Jimmy Sexton is good at what he does for a reason, and there's a we lost Brett, but there's a scarcity to his skills, if you will. If anybody could do it, then there would be a lot of Jimmy Sextons, but there's not a lot of Jimmy Sextons, just like there's not a lot of Brett Greenbergs right now. And I hope that we get Brett back, but
I don't know. It looks like we may have lost power there.
It's a stormy morning.
We're back.
You got Brett back.
Hey,
got you.
Was that? I think that was me. I just heard a doom and went down.
Yeah, you went out for a while. It was like the 1989 World Series there for a second. I thought Al Michaels was commentating an earthquake, and that's also like the 7th reference I've made to something in the 80s or 90s this week.
You're on a roll.
I really am on a roll.
Old man references.
I am. I'm getting older by the day. The other thing about the Kalen situation is that there's, from a financial standpoint, and I'm not saying that this would be the primary factor or is, but there's not a whole lot of incentive for Kalen DeBoer to leave on his own, given the way that his contract is structured. If he leaves on his own, and Alabama basically washes their hands of his contract, and it's not something that they would need to pay residually. If he is fired, terminated without cause, then they basically owe him, I think, 90% of his deal. So, and there's no offset. They would owe him that money.
$1 million, something like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of money, $60 million, and there's no offset. So getting a new job does not subtract that new pay from his what he's owed from Alabama. So again, I'm not saying money is a factor, but there's just not a whole lot of incentive financially for Kalen DeBoer to say, yeah, I'm out of here. Like, I'm going to take a different job. Like, I think you'd have to get fired, and then therefore you'd collect a check from Alabama. So again, there's a lot of layers to it. I've been in this business long enough to not be naive to just completely dismiss anything like this, especially this time of year. But at the same time, I don't see all of these stars aligning for Penn State. If you even call it that, I don't know if a coach losing a game is a star aligning for you, but I just, at the end of the day, I don't see it happening.
No.
But I'm not willing
Weird
to just.
Stuff happens though. If you want to relate it to the Egg Bowl, Mississippi State was not going to fire Joe Moorhead. They'd made the decision. They were not going to fire Joe Moorhead. And then the Egg Bowl happened, and they said, "Oh shit, we can't keep doing this." So things happen. Weird things happen. That doesn't mean that I think it's going to happen. I just think there's enough smoke. There's enough dots to connect. There's enough interest from one side, not both sides, one side, to make it a story. And to just ignore it, I don't think is right, especially considering what's at stake this weekend and what it could look like coming out of it if they do lose the game.
I agree with that assessment.
I think, obviously it's the head coach versus coordinator, but I think there's more smoke with Kane Womack, but we've always kind of talked about that, but we don't need to dive into that if we want to.
Well,
I mean, we are
just say real quick. Obviously, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'll just say real quick, like obviously those are two slightly different scenarios, in that you have Kane that would be elevated to a head coach, whereas you have Alabama, you have the head coach of Alabama being speculated, whether it's baseless or not, to go somewhere else. Obviously, a difference there. But for Kane, look, if Arkansas offers you the head coaching job and you are a former player at Arkansas, like you're taking that job to be an SEC head coach. Hell yeah. Like if Oklahoma State offers you their head coaching job and Arkansas doesn't, I think you still take the Oklahoma State job to be a Big 12 coach.
Yeah.
Kane is a ambitious guy. And
he carries himself like a head coach too.
Yeah. He speaks, looks, talks like a head coach. So
interacts with the quarterback like a head coach.
Shot down a question about being a head coach yesterday, like a head coach.
Yeah.
Respect the question, but I'm not talking about it right now. So look,
C-Lane.
And this is now a top 10 defense that Kane is coaching. This is kind of carrying the team as of late. And look, it would make sense, I think, for either Arkansas or Oklahoma State. And then you have Grubb. I think, his name kind of comes up more at the West Coast jobs, even though he's from Iowa. But Cal right now is the one that was mentioned by ESPN, and it seems less likely with there just because with Grubb, because he doesn't have previous head coaching experience. The offense is not where it was, his last year at Washington. So I think his stock's probably a little bit different. And even then, he didn't get the Washington job when Kalen left, even though he wanted it, by his own words. So, I think that's less likely, but if you're talking about Kane Womack being a head coach in a couple weeks somewhere, it just wouldn't surprise me at this point.
If you're, I know this is an Alabama podcast, but it's interesting to me. If you're Kane and you actually can choose between Oklahoma State and Arkansas, which I'm not saying that's the case, which one would you choose? Because I don't think I'd go to Arkansas.
Right. I know there's an uphill battle there in the SEC.
And the money part of it too. They're committed to basketball, man. And I don't know.
As I was saying, you want to fight with John? Yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting question. I think it's hard to turn down an SEC head coaching job unless it's Kentucky. And Kentucky, we talked about that. But it's hard to turn down an SEC head coaching job, especially when you kind of grew up around that program, so to speak. I think that would be really tough. Even in the Big 12, like there's still a lot of teams you're fighting with every year. You're fighting with BYU, you're fighting with Texas Tech, which has a lot of money. It's not necessarily easier in the Big 12, especially in the current playoff format. If you only got one spot,
it is easier in the Big 12. I'm not saying there aren't more big guns, but there's like 3 or 4 big guns as opposed to in the SEC where there's like 10 of them.
Right.
And you're in a not great spot in terms of recruiting.
But I think in either case, you're not necessarily playing for the playoffs or coaching for the playoffs or coaching for a national championship. Yeah, I think you're coaching for your next job.
Yeah.
So if you are able to put Arkansas at 500, then you're putting yourself in position to get another job, I think.
I think you're giving Arkansas's fan base a lot of a lot more patience than I think they've shown. If you think
baby,
with 500.
Yeah, look, if he makes them a 500 team, go somewhere else. Like somebody would hire you.
Same. It's interesting. I think Kane deserves another opportunity. He's done a really good job. I think that more than anything should be the takeaway from this. Mm-hmm. And if Alabama finds a way to get him back for another season, that'd be a really big plus. But I don't know that it's necessarily trending in that direction.
Yeah. I also, just to put a final bow on it, it's like you and I have talked about it, and everybody. It's like, if there was one kind of assistant that you were circled going into the year, or even when he was hired, it was Womack. Like, probably going to be up for head coaching jobs down the road if his unit, performs the way it is, and obviously it has. Back to the Iron Bowl, Alex. You says Alabama's going to win this game.
Yeah.
Why? What are the keys? And we'll kind of go from there.
I know this sounds dumb. I know it does, but it's lined up too perfectly for Alabama to fail. Like, it just feels like it's too obvious. And I don't believe Ty is as bad as a quarterback as we saw against Oklahoma. I think Kalen made a really good point the other day about going into Jordan Hare and the pressure that comes with that. They won 4 straight ranked games earlier in the season when everybody had them left for dead. Like, they've kind of gone through it. They're not a team that is built right now to panic. I don't think as a team they panicked against Oklahoma. I think Ty just struggled, and it cost them. I just think I think they're going to go in there, and I think they're going to find a way to win. And at the end of the day, one of these teams is ranked in the top 10. The other team is unranked. One of these teams is talked about as a playoff team. The other one is looking for a head coach. And we can talk ourselves into Auburn, and we can recognize that they are a talented football team. I don't know that they're a good football team, though. I don't know that Ashton Daniels scares you if you're Kane Womack. There's some things you got to make sure you get right, but I just don't see it. I think Alabama finds a way to win this game.
I think
Mike,
they
with
do.
the rebuttal?
I think no, it's not a rebuttal necessarily. I think they find a way to win. I think it's a low scoring game, because I think both defenses are very good. And I mean, I guess it could be a low scoring game that goes to overtime. Like that 2021 game looks different because of the overtime scores, but that was really a low scoring game. I would be concerned about the kicking situation on the road. I would be concerned about not having Josh Cuevas, if that's the case. I would be concerned about being able to run the ball. I'd be concerned about the tendency we've seen lately for the offense to turn the ball over, Ty particularly. I'd be concerned about the pass protection against Auburn. I would feel pretty good against Auburn's offense, but I would also say that Cam Coleman's the best receiver you've seen this year. If Ashton Daniels can run and you have a mobile quarterback that's at times given Alabama problems, the traditional running game for Auburn probably wouldn't scare me a whole lot. There's elements to the game that can go one way or the other. At the end of the day, it's the Iron Bowl. I've kind of covered enough of these now to know that you can, to some degree, throw out what's happened before. It seems especially true when you're playing at Jordan-Hare. It's one of the best sporting events in America. I don't know what the hell is going to happen, but I'm going to enjoy watching it and enjoy being there. And whatever happens, happens. I mean, that's just, it is what it is. It's the Iron Bowl, and it's a spectacle. And I'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, that's 6:30, 6:45 kickoff even adds to it, where it's like, man, Mike and I hate it as having to cover it because it means it's going to be a really long night, but that place is going to be juiced to pass the night. It's going to be incredible. And that's why I think how Alabama starts this game will be crucial, because it's not just can you take the crowd out of it. It's can you get Ryan back in the right frame of mind and create a little bit of juice for him, because when he is feeling it, he's really hard to stop. So it's might be one of those, whoever scores first wins the game. We'll see. So it should be really fun. Like, that's the bottom line of all of it. Mike is right. This is appointment television, appointment viewing.
Well, I would agree with you, but I was listening to the next round yesterday. Joel Klatt said the Iron Bowl is not in the same hemisphere as Ohio State versus Michigan. Hemisphere, Mike.
I've never covered one, so I can't speak to that game. But
yeah, I got that. But like, hemisphere seems like you could have said something. I don't know. I've never covered Ohio State Michigan either. I haven't been up there. I haven't been around it. But I don't know. That seems a little. I don't know.
Like
he's just looking for the clip.
It's an intense rivalry, but I don't.
Well, here's the other part of it. Michigan and Ohio State are both been very good lately. Auburn has not been good lately. In fact, this is the first year, the first time that they've had 6 seasons in a row not reaching 7 wins. And so that's since the 1940s. So it's not a good Auburn team. And I think when you've had a good Auburn team against a good Alabama team, probably 10, 15 years ago, the game had a lot of juice. So unfortunately, I think we have lost Brett, but what we are going to do is just wrap up the show right here and say that we will see you. Oh, Brett's
Brett, you want to wrap up?
We are going to wrap it up.
Yeah, I had to do your job for a second. I was just going to say that we're wrapping up the show, and I guess we'll see you, as I said, on the other side on Sunday.
Yeah, Mike put it perfectly. All 3 of us will be there in Jordan-Hare. And again, 75% off annual subscription. VIP for the year. I'm going to hit the outro before I get kicked out again. Thank you guys. Happy Thanksgiving.